Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Power Query for finance users. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing reconciliations. A reconciliation is a two-step approach. First step implies summarizing the transactions including in that account. For example, if we want to reconcile the accrual account, we have to summarize the open items. The transactions could be posted in the nominal ledger, but there are cases when they are posted in a subledger or they are even imported from a different system. So then the second step would be to compare the subledger or the import from the other system with the nominal ledger and find the reconciling items. Today's episode is going to be focusing on this second step. Reconciliations are the bread and butter of an accountant. We spend so much time on them. The issue here is that the more time we spend on preparing the reconciliations, the less time we have for investigating and actioning on the reconciling items. That's why I want to show you a different way to approach reconciliations with Power Query. And the scope here would be to spend less time on preparing them and more time on investigating the reconciling items, but also to understand the importance of the matching fields when matching two reports. And this would enable you to focus on investigating the ERP setup and how to improve that to speed up reconciliations. The functionality you're going to see here today will enable you to match multiple reports. And we have two use cases here. We have the same report generated at different times, so same report with different timestamps that you can compare. For example, if something gets posted after close, you could easily compare and see what was back posted. And then the second use case would be different reports with matching columns. So examples would be customer or supplier statements received from external parties, matching the subledger with the GL, or matching the bank statement with the bank subledger. When designing the solution, I focused on two features: completeness and traceability. Completeness means that I want to see on the face of the reconciliation the breakdown and how that breakdown adds up to the total of the balance. So I want to clearly see that the total of the mismatches plus the total of the matches equals the total of the balance. This is important for every reviewer to be able to easily understand what the reconciliation includes. The second feature is traceability. Traceability refers to being able to track the mismatches to the underlying data source. For example, if it's imported from another system or the transactions sit in a subledger, and also to have the full details from the other source. This is important if you were to action on those items and investigate them, because you would like to have the full detail about them. I'm going to show you two different approaches to reconciliation. The first approach here is comparing Lookup in Excel with merge in Power Query. This approach focuses on exactly what it says, doing lookups between multiple reports and highlighting the differences. The second approach here is focusing on combining all the reports into one big report and highlighting the differences in a pivot table. So we're going to be looking at the append function in Power Query versus using copy and paste to combine all those reports. Let's get started with an example. We have here a reconciliation between the AR subledger and the nominal ledger. There is a difference this month while there wasn't one last month. So what we did here, we extracted the transactions for this month from both sources. In the nominal ledger, the journals get posted by a GL account, while in the subledger they get posted by a customer account. However, each ERP system has a mapping between the customer number and customer group, and then between the customer group and the GL account. If we were to do this reconciliation by what I call a brute force, we will use the rainbow approach, which is coloring all the reconciling items. This works well if there are not that many items. If there's a bigger volume, we would use a lookup. We need to find a unique value, so sometimes we concatenate fields like GL account and journal number, and then do the lookup to find the reconciling items. There's no issue with this approach. However, let's see if Power Query can do better. Before we delve into the Power Query way of preparing a reconciliation, a word of caution first about the merge functionality. So merge means actually joining of two tables, and it can behave like a lookup in certain conditions. We have here two tables. We have the item code and item description, and then we have a separate table with the category for each item code. If we were to do a lookup in Excel, this would bring up the category. But see here for item A, we have two categories, green and red. The lookup would just bring the first value, which is green. With merge, it behaves differently. So merge is joining two tables, which means that if I have a duplicate here, you will see in Power Query that it will bring actually both values. So this would mean it will duplicate your rows. Therefore, you have to be very careful when using the merge function that when you're bringing values from another table, you don't have duplicates in that table, because this would double your lines or triple your lines. So it will actually throw out your reconciliation. So always make sure, going back to the lookup example here, that you're doing the merge based on a unique field that's got unique values, based on a field with unique values, right? You don't want to be doing the merge based on a field that's got duplicate values. Let's start with our example in Power Query then. I'm going to select the first report, the nominal ledger, and I'm going to convert it to an Excel table and rename it to GL. Then I'm going to import it from table range. That's it here, imported, and do the same for my AR report. So insert table, rename it, and then import it from table range. That's my setup here, and as we discussed in the previous video of documentation, it's good practice to copy this into a new folder, input. So those are my original queries, and then I'm going to have another folder for transformations. Right, now let's get to the merge part. So we select the GL table, and you can see here we can merge with the AR table. We're going to select as new because we want to leave this table as it is. To do a merge in a new table, I'm going to select the GL and the AR table. Now what's good about the merge functionality is that you don't need a concatenate column. You could if you wanted to, it's not bad, but you can do without. So I'm going to select here with control both fields, and then here the same GL account and journal number. That means the matching will be done by those fields. And you can see here you already have a hint. The selection matches 4 of 5 rows from the first table. You will see here the merge, the join can be done. It's got different options. If you come from a programming background, SQL, you recognize these options. But if you're just coming from Excel, I'll paste this link in the video comments. So you've got here the tables are the circles. You can see graphically how the tables are joined. Now here we can have different approaches. So we could do 3 separate joins. So we have 3 joins showing 1, the matching items, 2 mismatches, being 2 not in GL3, not in subledger. Or we could do 1 big join with GL and AR, and then do like an if formula to show what the mismatches are. So let's do the first approach here, the 3 separate joins. So I'm going to select here only matching rows. I want to see the matching rows. Okay, here in transformations, and I'm going to call this matching items. Note here, when I used a join to get the matching items, I could have used a classic Excel lookup, and this would be replicated with merge by selecting this type of merge, or from first matching from second. This would keep the first table intact and then do the lookup on the second table. So you'd see here I get a value for every row, but the last row is a mismatch. From this point of view, merge is a step up above lookup in Excel, because it enables me to remove the lines I don't need. And in this case, we're trying to create three tables that contain the matches and mismatches. So that's why here I selected only matching rows. Let's see now how to do the mismatches. So for the matches, we use this type of join in the intersection of the two tables. For the mismatches, we have to use these two other joins to get the rows only from one table and then only from the second table. Let's see how to do that. Going back to our queries here. So I'm going to duplicate this one and call this one only in GL, and then make another copy and call this one only in AR. So with the first one here, we're going to say, well, we only want to get the rows only in GL, only in first. It's pretty simple now. I don't need the AR bit because there's nothing in AR, so I don't have to expand this here to get the AR detail. I can remove it. Going back to AR here, we're going to use this other join, rows only in AR. Say OK. Here the GL bit is null because there's nothing in GL for these transactions. I'm going to remove these columns and I'm going to expand the AR bit to get the detail from AR. So here we have three types of join: matching items and mismatches. And this follows the features we discussed before, completeness and traceability. Why? Because in terms of completeness, I can always add my matching item with my mismatch and get to the total AR balance or GL balance. And then on the other side, traceability, because I always have the detail from GL or from the AR of the reconciling item. Let's see now a second approach. So here we discussed how we can have three separate joins, three separate tables, but let's see how to get this with one join. So previously here we used these three, and now we want to do just one join with all the rows from both tables. We're going to use this one here. Let's go back to Power Query and duplicate this and call it all rows from both tables. So let's change it and get the rows from both. And we're going to expand the AR table. Now we don't really need the same amount of information, GL account, journal number, because we already have it from the GL. So from the AR, we're just going to get the amount. So this is AR amount, and then we're going to call this one GL amount. And we could add a conditional column. So this is very easy to do. We're going to call it category here. So we can already see that if we have null amounts in the GL, that means transactions only in AR, and so on and so forth. I just realized here actually that we might have to expand more columns here, expand more fields. So actually we need to get the GL account and the journal number. Okay, to have the full detail. So going back to adding a conditional column, we are going to call it like category and say if the GL amount is null, that means we only have it in AR, so call it only in AR. Otherwise, if the AR amount is null, we only have it in GL. Else, if none of them are null, we're going to say it's a matching item. Right, so we've added a category here, and we can see that each transaction has been tagged, and this actually meets up both features, which is traceability and completeness, because we can easily filter here on matching items and AR, get the AR balance, matching items and GL, get the GL balance, and we also have the full detail here from the GL or from the AR. I hope you enjoyed this session of Power Query, and you can see now that the merge functionality is a step up from Excel Lookup. It offers a lot of flexibility and can be applied out of the box for reconciliations. I demonstrated my example using Excel tables, but obviously you can connect directly to files. So next time when you download your reports, you can just auto refresh the query, and that's your reconciliation done. As opposed to Excel Lookup, what you would normally do, you would download your reports and you would have to recreate again your concatenate fields, your lookups, or if you're using the previous files, you have to copy paste your transactions, fill down your lookups, and then apply some filters. So much easier to do in Power Query. Finally, please subscribe to my channel and follow me for the next episode, where I'm going to show you yet another way to prepare a reconciliation.